This cuento begins in El Cerro del Muerto, or Hills of the Dead, in beautiful Aguascalientes, Mexico, where my grandmother, Maria Dominga Ortega, was born in 1907. To a modest family who worked the fields and gathered different vegetables and herbs in the montanas around Aguascalientes, and that's how they made a living. Early in her youth, her parents passed away, and she was raised by her Tío Pablo Ortega and his wife. Pablo was a very strict man, and he worked many hours in order for his family to be fed, and taking in another individual wasn't an easy task. This is a photo of the montanas in which they gathered herbs and other vegetables, as well as growing them in the countryside. And this is a photo of the market where they would sell these vegetables and herbs in Aguascalientes. During this time, she also spent a lot of time with her tia, and her tia was known as a curandera. And what she did was she learned about different herbs, how to process them. She learned about the ancient ways that the Aztecas used herbs and other plants for healing. And she also learned about the importance of recognizing the curanderas and curanderas before her, like Niño Fidencio, who is now known as a Mexican folk saint. Her tia's specialty, however, was that of a partera, or a midwife. And so curanderas who practice this type of healing use these same ideas to be able to help women pre and postnatal. And so they also help with the babies as well. Eventually she would leave Mexico and make her way to the United States. First stop was Oro Grande, New Mexico, where her uncle worked as a miner in the gold mines. After a short time being in Oro Grande, she moved to Horneada del Muerto area, or Journey of the Dead Man, switching from her Hills of the Dead to the Journey of the Dead Man, eventually making her way into Alamogordo, New Mexico in the 1920s. There she traded her montanas of Aguascalientes for that of the Sacramento Mountains, specifically the Sleeping Lady, where she continued to forage and gather herbs from the mountainside and use those in her work as a partera herself. She became well known in southern New Mexico and in northern Mexico as a partera and curandera, eventually to where she gained so much notoriety that one of the local doctors decided to hire her as his assistant, and she would travel around even the southwestern United States, delivering babies and helping him, and actually taking over his practice in many ways. Being a partera ended up being her don, or her gift, and eventually it picked up by some of the local newspapers, to where she was even recognized in this picture with some other old parteras and curanderas. She continued to practice as a curandera and partera through the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, where she used her remedios and her practices, limpias, to be able to help people all throughout the southern part of the New Mexico. This is a picture of her partera stool, which was used when women were delivering babies. I got the picture from my aunt, and it was very difficult, and hopefully I can one day inherit that stool as a reminder of how wonderful she was. This is a picture of her shortly before her death in 1977, where she continued to practice all the way until her last days. This is a picture of my abuela's hands, the hands of a curandera, of a partera, and of a mother and grandmother. Her influence passed on to my family as we continued to practice all of the remedios and stuff that she had taught us. Eventually, it even crossed over to me, to where I took the reins and continued to keep those practices alive in order to maintain and sustain this beautiful part of our culture and beautiful part of my family. Mi don, or my gift, is to continue these practices with my family and being able to show and share the magic of limpias, the magic of the huevo limpia with my family and others outside of my family, and also to share the precious knowledge of herbs and plants and how magical they are and how important they are for us to be able to continue to heal and use the methods that have been working for thousands of years. And it's important to address the fact that we may have lost it, but it's never going to disappear, and now we're bringing it back. My don is also to share this knowledge with my students. As an educator, I work with them to be able to learn things like ventosas and learn the power of smoke, the healing factors that are attributed to things like copal and sage. And I get to share that with my students all the time. And here's an example of just that.
Yo tomo tu agua para mi sed. Yo tomo tus animales y plantas para el hambre. Yo tomo su bosque para refugio. Yo tomo su belleza natural por inspiración. Yo tomo su viento y las estrellas como guías. Yo tomo su mar para viajar. Pero ¿qué doy yo en cambio? Yo suplico que la lluvia vuelva para mi sed. Yo planto vegetales y crío animales, en cambio tomo para mi hambre. Yo renuevo selvas y cambio de refugio. Yo creo arte, en cambio por mi inspiración. Yo encuentro mi camino para mi casa, en cambio por mi guía. Yo descubrí nuevas tierras, en cambio por mis viajes. Gracias, tierras, por lo que me das.